Hi, this is Tim Zinnemann. I'm unfortunately not going to be there in person, so I thought I'd do this little video to say what I would have said had I been there. I'm very disappointed not to be able to come, but I know that both my son Oscar and my daughter Emily will do a great job of representing the Zinnemann family. It's something that we're extremely honored to be a part of and very excited about the festival and hope that you're all enjoying yourselves there. We had absolutely no idea that my father was even Polish until after he died. I found his birth certificate in a drawer shortly after his death, and much to my surprise, it showed that he was born in Poland in a town that I could not even pronounce, and I was totally confused as to why he had never mentioned this at all during his life. He had always said that he had been born in Vienna and was raised in Austria, which was only partially true because he left Poland for Vienna when he was 9 or 10 years old. So to this very day it remains a mystery as to why he never said that his roots, his family, and he were all Polish. So I am extremely grateful and happy that all of you have decided to honor him in this way and his many good works over a lifetime. Let me tell you a little bit about him if you don't know it already. He left Vienna as a boy at 19 to study cinematography in Paris, much against his parents' wishes, and found that was what he wanted to do with his life. He was just completely enamored with movie making, and that at that age he decided that would be his life. After doing one picture in Berlin, he decided to go to the States and take his chances and get into the union in Hollywood as a cameraman. He had an introduction to the head of Universal Pictures, Carl Laemmle, who very kindly got him a job as an extra playing a German soldier in All Quiet on the Western Front. And so his first assignment in Hollywood was as a movie extra. Unfortunately for him, he talked back to the assistant director after a couple of days and was immediately fired. And for a while fell on hard times trying to get a job here and get a job there, and nothing seemed to work. In the late 30s, he met Robert Flaherty, for whom he was a famous documentary filmmaker, and they were going to be working on a film together, and they met in Berlin and talked for 6 months about this film, but the film itself never happened. But what did happen was that Flaherty greatly influenced the work of my father for the rest of his life, and he basically, in most all of his work, took a documentary approach to the filmmaking, and what he always looked for first and foremost was the truth in the work that he was going to put onto the screen, and he would spend many months researching each individual project to find its internal truth. It wasn't until after the war, when a Swiss producer named Lazar Wexler came and asked if he could borrow my father to do a picture called The Search, things started to really change for him. First of all, MGM was delighted to get rid of him because they didn't want him around, and he was delighted to be away from the constraints of MGM not being told what to do and how to do things creatively. So he went to Switzerland quite happily to do the search. At the time that he started, there was no script, and they had some false starts back and forth until he did a lot of research in Germany right after the war with the UNRWA people, and based on the research that he did, they crafted a script, and he hired Montgomery Clift, who was a complete unknown at the time, to be the lead in the picture. Clift insisted, one of the things he insisted upon was writing his own dialogue, because he felt that the Swiss screenwriter didn't understand Americans, and so that was, my father allowed him to write his own dialogue as long as it followed the parameters of what they were shooting. Clift went on to become a very close family friend of ours, including a very close friend of mine, up until his death. The picture was the first one that I would say my father could truly be proud of as something that he created himself from scratch. One of the things that did happen on that particular picture was, at a certain point, it was taken out of his taken away from him by the producer, who insisted on putting narration over the beginning and flooding the movie with too much music, both of which things my father was furious about but could do nothing about. So to this day, when you see the movie and you find the beginning narration a bit corny, well, it's because it was. But there was nothing he could do about it. Stanley Kramer, who had just started a company as one of the first independent filmmakers outside the Hollywood system, and he signed my father for a 3-year to a 3-picture contract. And the first of these was The Men, starring Marlon Brando, who was hot on Broadway but unknown in Hollywood, and it was his first assignment as an actor. The picture, again, did not receive much attention and didn't do well at the box office, but did get some critical acclaim. Sort of at this point in my father's career, he was considered to be an art house director, is how he was labeled, which was a code in Hollywood for somebody who makes artful pictures but that make no money. So basically, death at the box office and stay away from him. But Kramer believed in my father and gave him a second shot, which was High Noon. And at the time, High Noon was in preparation. Nobody thought anything of it. It was just a little B picture that was they had no money to make it with. Gary Cooper was the star, but he was considered washed up at the time. And Grace Kelly was the ingenue wife who had never been in anything, and nobody knew who she was. Carl Foreman was the writer and was supposed to be the producer until he got in trouble with McCarthy and the whole communist Senate investigation thing, and was subsequently had to flee to England in the middle of the picture. There's speculation as to whether the picture was about the McCarthy hearings and that era, or if it was just a tale, a Western. And my father's take on it was that it's just a story, it's just a tale, and it's a classic tale that could be found in Greek literature. Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling, and that became a big hit single. And it started to generate business for the movie, and it's continued to this day. It's one of the considered one of the classic movies ever made. Because of the enormous success of this movie, it definitely advanced my father's career, and he went on to make From Here to Eternity at Columbia. He asked Harry Cohen, the head of the studio, to hire Monty Clift to play the lead, and Cohen sniffed and said no. He had somebody else under contract, and that guy was who he wanted to use, and the ladies loved him, and he was being paid anyway, so that's who he wanted to use. So my father said to Cohen, well, listen, this is a wonderful project. I'd really love to do it, but if that's what you're going to do, then please take your picture and find somebody else. So the next day, they sent the script to Clift, and Clift became the lead in the movie. And it went on to win 8 Academy Awards and revive Frank Sinatra's career. Other pictures, I'd say memorable pictures that my father, that I consider my favorite pictures, are actually the same ones that you seem to be viewing over there. So another one would be the Nun story. I thought that was too long and needed a lot of editing, and it meandered a bit, but I thought Hepburn's performance was absolutely wonderful. And again, my father went back to his documentary roots and researched it very well and worked with the Vatican. Would be Man for All Seasons, which again, I think you're running there. That was made at a time when my father's career was on the wane, and nobody was that interested in hiring him anymore, and they thought he was too difficult and too expensive, and he was making pictures that nobody really wanted to see. So it was very, at that point, difficult for him to find something that he believed in that people would want to make. But a man who was the head of Columbia named Mike Frankovich took a leap of faith, and when my father brought him Man for All Seasons as a project to do, he said, okay, we'll go ahead and do it, but we'll give you $3 million, and that's all the budget you will have. And even in those days, that was not a lot of money. My father snapped at the chance and took it. And again, to me personally, I think it's one of the best pictures he's ever made. It was extremely well crafted, very disciplined in the style that he used, and the performances were marvelous. The story, thanks to Robert Bolt, was amazing. So that picture went on to beat out, I don't remember what it was beating out. It beat out Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf to win 6 Academy Awards the next year. So that about does it for me from here. The only other thing I'd like to say is that we didn't know anything much at all about your beautiful city until we looked it up online. And it looks like an amazing place, and it reminds me a bit of Salzburg, Austria, where I have been. I'm very disappointed personally not to be there, but I know my kids, Fred Zinnemann's grandkids, will do a great job representing the family. I see from the pictures that you've shown me, that you put together, that preparations are well on their way, and it looks like a fabulous event. I'm very sorry to not be there with you, and I wish you all the best and have a wonderful event. Thank you very much.